Bronze. For most sprinters, a bronze medal is a career highlight. For Julien Alfred, in March of 2026, it felt like a warning sign. She'd won this exact race 2 years earlier. Now she was 0.03 of a second off the podium's top step, staring down a field that no longer feared her the way it used to. But this is not a story about decline. This is a story about a champion clawing her way back to the top of her sport. One race, one country, one comeback at a time. This is the 2026 season of Julien Alfred. If you want to be there for the next chapter, the world record chase, the rivalries, whatever comes next, hit subscribe and turn on notifications now so you don't miss it. To understand 2026, you have to understand what came before it. In August 2024, Julien Alfred became the first athlete in St. Lucian history to win an Olympic medal. And she didn't just win one, she won gold, taking down American favorite Sha'Carri Richardson in the 100-meter final. A silver in the 200-meter followed days later. Overnight, a nation of under 200,000 people had a global superstar. The St. Lucian government declared September 27th Julien Alfred Day. She was, by every measure, the fastest woman on the planet. But 2025 didn't go to plan. By her own account, she ended the season, in her words, in a tough spot health-wise. The details were kept close. Professional athletes rarely spell out exactly what's wrong. But the message was clear. The reigning Olympic champion was walking into 2026 not as an unstoppable force, but as someone with something to prove. That's the frame for everything that follows. Before any of that, though, there's Cicerone, a small community on the island of St. Lucia, the kind of place that had never produced a global sports star. Julien Alfred grew up here, discovering athletics the way a lot of Caribbean kids do, through school sports days and the simple fact that she was faster than everyone else on the field. The path off the island ran through American college athletics. Alfred enrolled at the University of Texas, where she became one of the most decorated sprinters in NCAA history, and where she linked up with a coach who would shape the rest of her career. Edric Floreal, a former Olympian himself, known for building sprinters with technically precise starts and ferocious closing speed. That partnership is still the backbone of everything Alfred does. Even now, years after turning professional, she continues to base herself in Texas, working with Floreal on the same fundamentals: reaction time, acceleration mechanics, and the ability to close a race rather than just start one fast. It's worth remembering this foundation because everything that happens in 2026, the records, the medals, the setbacks, traces back to a training partnership built years before anyone outside of college track was paying attention. February 7th, 2026, the Woo Pig Classic in Fayetteville, Arkansas, Alfred's old stomping ground from her University of Texas days. She opens her season with a 7.04 in the 60 meters. It's not spectacular by her standards, but it's the fastest time in the world that week. A quiet, encouraging start. 6 days later, she's back on the same track for the Tyson Invitational, and this time she doesn't just win, she runs 7.01 in the preliminary heat, then drops to 6.99 in the final. A meet record, a world-leading time, and a reminder of just how rare her talent is. Alfred is now one of a small handful of women in history to break 7 seconds in the 60 meters. For a moment, it looks like the old Julien Alfred is back. Then March arrives, and Torun, Poland hosts the World Indoor Championships, the biggest test of her season so far. She cruises through the early rounds, but in the final, something is off. Her reaction time, 0.171 seconds, is the slowest in the field. Italy's Zainab Dosso, a rapidly rising sprinter who'd already claimed the European indoor title weeks earlier, storms to gold in 7.00. American Jacia Sears takes silver. Alfred crosses in 7.03, bronze, by 0.03 of a second. Afterward, she doesn't hide from the moment. She told reporters she was healthy again after a difficult end to the previous season, and that she was simply focused on building forward from here. It's her 5th global medal. But bronze, for an Olympic champion, is a number that stings a little. The question heading into the outdoor season becomes obvious. Was Torun a sign of where she really is right now, or just an early season stumble before the real season begins? July 10th, 2026, the Monaco Diamond League, and the field assembled for the women's 200 meters might be the deepest of the entire season. Gabby Thomas, the reigning Olympic 200-meter champion, ranked second in the world that year. Adasia Hodge, the world under-20 record holder, fighting through a recent hamstring injury. And Julien Alfred, who had chosen to step up from the 100 meters to challenge them both over the full turn. Hodge's story alone is worth pausing on. Just 20 years old, she'd returned to the sport after serving a 17-month suspension for a banned substance she'd taken as a teenager, and had come back running faster than ever, entering Monaco as the actual world leader in the event. She represented exactly the kind of new generation threat Alfred would need to get used to seeing across the track in years to come. So this wasn't just a stacked field on paper. It was a genuine changing of the guard moment. Established champions like Alfred and Thomas against a rising wave nipping at their heels, with a healthy, in-form Alfred determined to prove she still belonged at the very front of that queue. Off the turn, Alfred is right on Thomas's shoulder. It's tight, it's tense. And then, in the final 50 meters, she simply pulls away. 21.51 seconds, a meet record, a national record for St. Lucia, the world lead for 2026, and the third fastest 200 meters ever run by a woman. Gabby Thomas finishes third. Rising star Adasia Hodge, despite her injury concerns, takes second, but the night belongs to Alfred. And yet, true to form, she isn't fully satisfied. Alfred admitted afterward she wasn't happy with the time, even as she called it a win worth taking, and pointed to her health as the real victory of the night. It's a telling response. This is an athlete who is no longer just chasing times. She's rebuilding trust in her own body, one race at a time, and Monaco was proof that the foundation is solid again. 4 days later, July 14th, the Gyulai István Memorial in Budapest, the final stop of the World Athletics Continental Tour Gold calendar, and Alfred drops back down to her signature event, the 100 meters. The competition is stacked. Fighting a headwind, Alfred crosses first in 10.87, a season's best, beating Jamaica's Tina Clayton by 1/10 of a second. Brianna Liston takes third. Thompson Hira, the legend, finishes fourth as she continues working her way back to form. 2 diamond tier wins, 2 different events, 4 days apart. It's the clearest statement yet. The sprinter who limped out of 2025 has arrived at the heart of her 2026 season in genuinely elite form. What's striking is how differently the 2 wins were earned. Monaco was about raw, top-end speed, a flying finish that only a handful of women in history have ever matched. Budapest was grittier, a wind in her face, a stacked field including a former world champion fighting to reclaim her own peak form, and Alfred simply refusing to let anyone past her in the closing meters. 2 wins, 2 completely different tests, both passed. And Thompson Hira's presence in that Budapest field deserves its own mention. A 2-time Olympic sprint double champion, she spent the last couple of years fighting her own comeback story, proof that even legends have to claw their way back once age and setbacks enter the picture. Watching her line up against Alfred, a sprinter roughly a decade her junior now carrying the torch she once held, was its own quiet passing of generations. Back home, the reaction is immediate. St. Lucian officials publicly praised her consistency and her pursuit of excellence, framing every win as a reminder that talent from the small island nation can compete with and beat the very best in the world. So where does Julien Alfred go from here? 2026 is unusual for her in one respect. There's no Olympics, no outdoor world championships waiting at the end of the season. It's a rare open year, and instead of coasting, she's used it to chase something personal. Early in the season, she spoke about her love for the 60 meters specifically, and about a long-standing goal. Irina Privilova's indoor world record of 6.92, a mark that stood for more than 3 decades. Alfred's own best, 6.94, sits just 200ths away. She didn't get it in Fayetteville. She didn't get it in Torun. But the pursuit itself tells you something about where her head is at. Not just defending an Olympic title, but chasing history on her own terms. What's clear by mid-2026 is this. The tough spot she described at the end of last season is firmly in the rearview mirror. Between the world-leading 60 meters in February, the third fastest 200 meters in history in Monaco, and back-to-back diamond tier wins into July, Julien Alfred hasn't just returned to form, she's reminded the entire sport why she's the reigning Olympic champion. The rivals are circling. Gabby Thomas, Sha'Carri Richardson, Melissa Jefferson Wooden, last year's world champion. A new wave led by Adasia Hodge. The field has never been deeper, But as 2026 has shown, betting against Julien Alfred is still, for now, a losing bet. If you want to be there for the next chapter, the world record chase, the rivalries, whatever comes next, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss it.